Suppose a kid from the last dungeon boonies moved to a starter town begins in Kunlun, a village whose entire population is descended from heroes. But among the villagers, who are considered the strongest people in the world, lives Lloyd Belladonna, a weakling who cannot do the work the villagers expect. That's why he chose to leave the village and wander to the Azami kingdom to become a royal soldier. There, Lloyd stays in the residence of a witch named Mari, who, although initially refusing to host him, is eventually forced to accept him after he takes out the crystal ball. Using this item, he summons Alka, the head of the Kunlun village, Mari's former teacher. Of course, Mari couldn't refuse her orders to take care of him, especially after knowing he was very powerful. Yes, Lloyd is considered weak in his hometown, and he also thinks that way, making him insecure. But the truth is that the standards of the people in Kunlun village were very high and different from others. So, even though he was the weakest person in Kunlun, he could be seen as a powerful person by outside standards. He could even use magic with ancient letters, an ability that is rarely possessed by the average person, and he only uses it to clean the house. And so, Lloyd started his new life in the Azami kingdom. But one day, while walking in the city, he saw a girl being attacked by a giant insect monster. Thinking it was just an ordinary insect, he then defeated the monster to save the girl, known as Selen, or Cursed Belt Princess. The nickname does make sense because her head is wrapped in a belt. Not because she liked it that way, but because she was cursed to not be able to take off the belt. But in the end, the curse disappeared after Lloyd cleaned her face with a handkerchief that contained ancient letters, which turned out to be used to remove many types of curses. Sure enough, the belt around her head fell off, making Selen touched by his kindness and fall in love with him. The next day, the selection of soldiers finally began, and there Lloyd met again with Selen, who was also taking the exam. Besides her, he also met a girl named Rio, a former mercenary who was recommended to become a soldier. But when she saw him, for some reason, she could feel his terrifying aura and strength, making her surprised that someone as strong as him wanted to become a soldier. And when she shared her findings with one of the instructors, Murthoffen, he was also confused because why someone as strong as Lloyd was there. Without a doubt, someone as strong as him would pass the exam easily, they thought. But surprisingly, Lloyd ended up not passing the exam. Frankly, when the military cadet class begins, Selen, Rio, and Murthoffen are confused as to why they can't find him there. As it turned out, the reason for his failure was simple: he used ancient script while taking the written exam. Even so, there is hope, as the class instructor Colleen announces that the royal princess, Maria, is still missing after being last seen 5 years ago. Therefore, whoever managed to find her could ask the king for any request. Hearing that, Selen and Rio are determined to find the princess, so they can ask the king to admit Lloyd to the military academy. Meanwhile, after failing to enter the military academy, Lloyd decides he will re-enlist again next year. So, for the time being, he will apply for odd jobs, and his choice falls on a cafe that turns out to be owned by Crone, a former royal guard who used to be in charge of looking after Princess Maria. Although he was initially a little reluctant when he saw the strong air emanating from Lloyd, Crone finally accepted him to work in his place after learning that he was a friendly and innocent young man, and most of all, he is very good at cooking. Later that night, Lloyd told Alka and Mari he had failed the exam, but he also expressed his determination to try again next year and that he would work part-time for a year to pay Mari's rent. Then, after Lloyd went to his room, Alka and Mari discussed the Azami kingdom, which would soon engage in war with the Geo kingdom. Because of that, Mari, who turns out to be Princess Maria, who's missing, asks for help so that Alka can help her kingdom. After all, the Azami kingdom would go to war with the Geo kingdom because the king of Azami, who was also Mari's father, was controlled by someone who wanted the two kingdoms to fight on the battlefield. But unfortunately, Alka refused to interfere because she and all the citizens of Kunlun would only make their move if they fought the demon lord or a natural disaster. Therefore, Mari must also not involve Lloyd in their problems. Several days passed without significant incident, until one day, Selen got into a fight with a fellow student, Alan, for some reason. And here, her cursed belt, which she now wore around her waist, protected her from his attacks. She didn't know why the belt did that, but in the end, she took it as a sign that Lloyd was her soulmate. Speak of the devil, at this moment, Lloyd appeared because he heard the fuss. As if realizing this was a golden opportunity to gauge Lloyd's true strength, Murthoffen ordered Alan to duel him. He readily agreed as he wanted to impress the officers and instructors. He was sure he could beat Lloyd, who in his eyes looked nothing more than a weak midget. And so, he arrogantly allowed Lloyd to hit him, thinking he would only receive a weak blow. How wrong he had been, because if Lloyd had attacked him, he could have killed Alan with one blow. Fortunately, before Lloyd's punch hits Alan's face, Mari arrives and takes him away with wind magic. although he mistakenly thought Mari was trying to save him from Alan. It turned out that Mari's arrival was also seen by Chrome, who was not far from there. As her former bodyguard, he naturally recognized that Mari was Princess Maria, so he confronted her. Now that her disguise has been exposed, she asks him to investigate the identity of the mysterious figure controlling her father. As the time passes, Selin and Rio go to Mari's house to look for information about Princess Maria, only to find that Lloyd lives with her. Luckily, Mari returned home soon after, and she confessed honestly that she was none other than the princess Selin and Rio were looking for. Her real name is Maria Azami. Lloyd was surprised to hear Mari's confession because he had thought she was a local hero who always helped people secretly all this time, and that's why he wanted to help her save the Azami kingdom. However, since Alka had warned her earlier, Mari rejected Lloyd's proposal because he was still too weak to help anyone, thus making him sad and leaving immediately. However, once he was out of sight, Mari finally asked Selin and Rio to help save the kingdom by searching for information about the person who controlled the king. Later that night, Alka takes Lloyd to the night festival to comfort him. But instead, a swarm of giant locust monsters suddenly appeared and ruined the festival. Meanwhile, Chrome and Murthoffen meet the king of Azami at the king's palace. Based on the information he had gathered with Selin and Rio, Chrome deduced that Murthoffen cursed the king so he could be controlled. Unexpectedly, Murthoffen admitted it. He had a grudge against the Geo kingdom after his village was attacked by Geo warriors a long time ago, and that's why he manipulated the king to start a war, hoping it would destroy the Geo kingdom. With Murthoffen confirmed as the one controlling the king, Mari, Selin, and Rio come to the king's palace to stop him. But before they move to arrest him, the king attacks him. It turned out that it was the king who actually controlled Murthoffen, not the other way around. Then, he turns Murthoffen into a monster before ordering him to kill Mari. But Chrome certainly won't let that happen. Chrome asked Mari to go after the king while he, Rio, and Selin would arrest Murthoffen. With that, Mari ran after him to the throne room. She still hadn't given up on him. She doesn't know why her father has supernatural powers and acts like a crazy person, but she hopes to bring her father back to normal with the ancient magic she learned from Alka. But sadly, just as she nearly manages to do so, the king outwits her, leaving her vulnerable to his attacks. After defeating Mari, the king broke her arm so she could no longer use ancient script magic. Then, after confirming that she would no longer could fight him, he revealed that he was the demon Lord Abaddon, who had apparently possessed King of Azami's body all along. Hearing the word demon lord, Mari immediately realized something. If she had known from the start that they had to face it, she would have brought Lloyd because, after all, the people of Kunlun were allowed to fight the demon lord. And so, she ran wild to find Lloyd, ignoring the demon calling out for her. At the same time, Lloyd was slaughtering the monsters he thought were insects. But then, he finally realized that the creatures he was dealing with were monsters after the people around him screamed in panic. Instantly, he thought of Mari and immediately rushed to look for her. But when he went to the king's palace, he passed Alan, who was cowering in fear. Lloyd understood the fear Alan felt, as he acted the same when he first encountered a monster, even though his version was a demon lord, not an insect monster. Thanks to Lloyd's words of encouragement, and also after seeing how he could defeat the insect monsters with ease, Alan's courage returned. With that, he rose to fight the insect monsters, although it wasn't long before Alka decided to use her magic and finish off all the remaining monsters. In the king's palace, Chrome and the others were overwhelmed by the monster version of Murthoffen. Fortunately, at this crucial moment, Lloyd finally came and brought Murthoffen to his knees with one slap. He could understand Murthoffen's motivations and how he wanted to be a true warrior. Therefore, Lloyd advised him to return to the right path. His advice made Murthoffen realize his mistake, and he slowly returned to being human. But the funny thing is that he thinks Murthoffen is so drunk that he makes a scene while cosplaying. That assumption made Murthoffen angry and turned into a monster again. But still, no matter how angry he was, Lloyd could beat him with a single header to his face. That, however, does not mean the problem is over. Shortly after that, Mari appeared with Demon Lord Abaddon trailing behind her. And yet again, Lloyd thinks Demon Lord Abaddon is a drunken old man cosplaying as king. Hearing Lloyd's ridiculous assumption, Mari took advantage of it and asked him to clean the drunken old man's dirty face with his handkerchief, which he did. He affixed ancient word magic to the handkerchief and wiped Demon Lord Abaddon's face with it, unaware that his actions made the Demon Lord disappear from King of Azami's body. The next day, things are peaceful again, and Lloyd meets his older brother, Shoma, who has come to town. But strangely, when Alka appeared, he disappeared out of nowhere. Meanwhile, Chrome is back to being a soldier. Murthoffen received the punishment of being exiled to Kunlun, and Mari chose to remain a mage even though her father had recovered from the demon lord's influence. The good news doesn't stop there. Now Lloyd is accepted into the military academy thanks to Alan's recommendation. Even so, there are still minor disputes during this piece. More precisely, the conflict between Selen and Alka was fighting over Lloyd. But when Selen's belt rose to protect her, Alka realized that the belt was a long-lost protective relic from Kunlun village. A few days later, Mari and Chrome took Lloyd to pick up the trash. But it turns out that the trash is a holy sword that no one has ever been able to pull out. And Lloyd, thinking the sword was indeed trash, pulled it out easily and then put it in the trash bag. Lloyd's life at the academy was also going smoothly. However, the students were trained intensively for the past few days as they were going to have an exhibition match against Rokujo Academy. Because of that, they're getting more active in magic training. Although Lloyd's strength is too great, he always ends up causing chaos in the training sessions. Due to this, instructor Colleen decided not to include him in the upcoming matches. Meanwhile, Mari's house had two unexpected guests, Philo and Meina Quinan, two sisters from Rokujo Academy who came to ask about Riho. But before they could say any more, they suddenly felt a terrifying aura that turned out to be from Lloyd, who had just come home from school. Philo reflexively attacked Lloyd with all her might, only to find her attack meaning nothing to him. Now that she realized the person in front of her was very strong, she immediately asked him to make her his student, to which Mari responded by kicking Philo and her sister out of the house. The next day, the principal of Rokujo Academy, Raul, came to see Riho. They seem to know each other well, as can be seen from how Raul tries to make Riho come home and how she threatens her. But Riho angrily refused, although she somehow became gloomy after that. Therefore, at Mari's suggestion, Lloyd tries to cheer her up by asking her out on a cafe date, where she then tells him about her past. So back then, Riho and Raul were in the same orphanage. At first, Riho really admired her, especially after she gave Riho an artificial mithril arm to replace her badly injured left arm. But after a while, Riho realized that the mithril arm drains magic, and Raul only gave it to her so that one day she could use it to draw the holy sword. Yes, it was the same sword that Lloyd easily pulled out the other day. A few days later, the exhibition match between Azami Military Academy and Rokujo Magic Academy was held, and the prize from the match turned out to be a holy sword. It made Raul so enthusiastic, and she even decided to join in the match. Seeing that, Colleen then decided to include Lloyd in the match. The first match pits Selen with Philo, who uses her magic to attack. Luckily, Selen could control her cursed belt, then used it to block Philo's attacks and bind her. But apparently, using objects like belts was categorized as a physical attack, and it was forbidden. As a result, she was disqualified. Then, in the second match, Azami Academy chose Lloyd as the representative, while Rokujo Academy appointed Meina. The outcome of this match is predictable. With his extraordinary magic, he came out victorious without breaking a sweat. The score was now even, and the match had to be decided by the third and final duel, which pitted Raul against Riho, who both used fire magic to attack. But for a moment, Raul's attack almost hit her, forcing her to dodge. And it was at this moment that Raul quickly approached Riho, then removed her mithril arm. Fortunately, previously Riho had hidden the explosive magic stone in her right hand. With the rock, she exploded her own hand, sending Raul flying far away, and her arm could return to normal thanks to the magic stone she had prepared beforehand. Not wanting to waste momentum, Riho cast high-level magic, scaring Raul until she fainted. In fact, she was just bluffing. She didn't actually cast any high-level magic. So, in the end, Azami Academy won the match. But that didn't make Raul just give up. When she woke up, Raul immediately tried to seize the holy sword. She received information that the one who drew the sword was Mari. So, because of that, she intended to make Mari an ally by kidnapping Lloyd. But instead of directly telling Philo to kidnap Lloyd, Raul spoke using a metaphor. She told Philo to steal something precious from Mari. Arriving at Mari's house, Philo saw her prostrate in front of the crystal ball, thus making her think that Alka's crystal ball was precious to Mari. Not only did she take the magic ball, but Philo also left a letter which Lloyd later found. In the letter, she was trying to tell the recipient that one of her valuables had been stolen. This time it was Lloyd's turn to misunderstand. He thought it was a letter for him, and because he didn't see Mari at home, he thought she was kidnapped. Incidentally, at this time, Alan came to the house. And so, taking Alan with him, Lloyd rushed off to save Mari. But on the way, they run into Philo, who immediately challenges Lloyd to a duel to the death. He accepts the challenge but wants them to duel by arm wrestling and even insists on doing it. While they had that ridiculous duel, Alan secretly left with the holy sword to protect it in a hidden place, even though its hiding point could not cover it from people's eyes. A moment later, one of Rawl's men came and attacked him. But unexpectedly, Mena appears and helps him. Back in Lloyd and Philo's arm match, their duel turns out to be so fierce that they shoot up into the sky while arm wrestling. But in the end, Lloyd could win the duel with the help of his magic, impressing her, who immediately asked him to marry her. On top of that, she had also told him that she had not kidnapped Mari. She was actually in the toilet all this time. Meanwhile, Rawl is furious after Philo brings her a crystal ball instead of Lloyd. But then suddenly, Alka appeared from her crystal ball, surprising Rawl, who immediately insulted her. Offended at being insulted, Alka unhesitatingly blows up the place, making Rawl be rushed to the hospital. When she lay in the hospital, a mysterious magician appeared to come to her. It turns out that he is the one who has been manipulating Rawl's memories to get the holy sword so that he can clear the dungeon in Kunlun while killing Alka. In Kunlun, there is indeed a dungeon that has not been conquered, which contains the strongest monsters. A few days later, the students at the military academy have a long vacation, and Lloyd wants to use it to work odd jobs as a cleaner at a hotel, to which the owner, Koba, admits frankly that recently something has been attacking his workers. People around the hotel often fall unconscious. After touring the hotel and putting on his uniform, Koba takes Lloyd to greet an unfriendly noble guest, Lord Thrionin. Even so, Lloyd could attract him because they both were interested in forestry. Later that night, one of Koba's maids, Kikyo, secretly went to see Thrionin to discuss something. It turns out that she is an investigator assigned by Thrionin to investigate strange phenomena around the hotel. They suspect Koba is planting Torrento trees illegally in the forest. That could explain why so many people fainted there. Torrento itself is related to the demon lords. The other name alone is the Demon King seed. And if the seed from the tree is eaten by a person, that person can gain extraordinary powers. Kikyo suspects Lloyd of eating the Torrento seeds because she sees how absurd his physical strength and abilities are while at work. Hearing her suspicion, Thrionin gave her an antidote that could remove the Torrento from Lloyd's body. And so, Kikyo gave the antidote to Lloyd by mixing it into his tea. But just before he took the teacup from her, Koba suddenly came, grabbed it, and drank it, though he immediately vomited the tea because of the strange taste. Afraid that Koba will be angry, Kikyo immediately runs away, but that only makes him suspect her and Thrionin as the masterminds behind strange events around the hotel. The next day, Riho visits the hotel, although she doesn't know that Lloyd is working there. Not only her, but Selen also came there with her father because apparently, he wanted to match her with the son of Thrionin, who was none other than Alan. She actually did not want to marry Alan. She hated the idea so much that it made her want to kill Thrionin to cancel the dating. But Selen soon forgot about the plan when she arrived at the hotel. She met Lloyd instead of Alan, much to her delight. He tells her that Alan suddenly fainted in the hotel bath, so Thrionin asks him to take Alan's place. Hearing cases of people fainting, Selen invites Lloyd to go on a date so they can simultaneously investigate the area. But just as they were about to leave, Shoma came to deliver the Molotov cocktails. Although, he did not linger there. He hurried off again after meeting Lloyd's friends. Meanwhile, Kikyo is still determined to give Lloyd the antidote, so she lurks from afar as Lloyd and Selen go on a date together, trying to find the gap so she can give him the antidote. Eventually, she found the opportunity while he was alone. Kikyo offered to massage him with the antidote, so he couldn't help but take his clothes off. But the moment she massaged him, Selen came back and, seeing what they were doing, immediately attacked Kikyo. And once again, Kikyo was forced to flee. In the afternoon, Lloyd soaked in the hot springs. But apparently, he's not the only one who wants to enjoy the pleasure of soaking in hot water. Selen and Riho also went there. Even Mari, Alka, Mena, and Philo were there. Mena and Philo turned out to be investigating a fainting case there. Hearing an explanation about the case, Alka then revealed that she knew the cause, and it was because of the Torrento seeds, which is a native plant of Kunlun. From a distance, Kikyo was apparently watching Lloyd taking a bath with the girls. But at this time, she meets Thrionin's secretary, Minoki, who turns out to be the one who has eaten the Torrento seeds. Gradually, he transformed into the demon lord of trees, Weakling. But luckily, Lloyd and the others realized they were being watched, and so, he went to check to find Kikyo with a strange tree-like creature. Lloyd thought Minoki was cosplaying as a tree, making Weakling angry. He immediately summoned his monster army, which Lloyd quickly defeated. But while Lloyd was slaughtering the monsters, Weakling took the opportunity to head to the hotel, where Thrionin, Koba, and his father Selen were discussing what was happening. A moment later, Weakling finally arrived and immediately tried to attack them. Luckily, the girls also came shortly after, although magic didn't work on the demon lord, so they had to rely on physical attacks. But Riho had other ideas. She rushed over to the wagon holding the Molotov cocktails and took them. Coincidentally, Alan, who was asleep on the wagon, had woken up, and she asked him to help them defeat the demon lord. And so, they started pelting the demon lord with Molotov cocktails before freezing him. It was at this moment that Lloyd finally arrived. He then took the seed from the Torrento that was inside the demon lord and destroyed it, thus turning Minoki back into an ordinary human. Not far away, Shoma was quietly watching the fight. Not only that, but he also managed to restrain Alka. It turned out that he was part of the plot that caused the Torrento seed case. He even admitted that he had planned many things since the Holy Sword was drawn, and his plans would not stop there. After saying all that, he left, leaving a furious Alka alone. Later, it is discovered that Shoma brought a woman named Mikona to meet her supervisor, So. Mikona herself is a student at the military academy who has a crush on Mari, but she was heartbroken to learn that Mari lived under the same roof as Lloyd. And since then, her hatred for Lloyd has never disappeared. Shoma is willing to help Mikona destroy Lloyd. He gives her medicine from Torrento and Abaddon. After consuming the two drugs, she instantly changed form, increasing her strength. Meanwhile, Lloyd and the others are asked to exterminate a giant snake in a dungeon. And while they were exploring the dungeon, they suddenly felt a strong shaking like an earthquake, making them think it was caused by the giant snake. But actually, it wasn't a giant snake or anything. It was just Alka and Mari breaking through the dungeon searching for So. But instead of So, Mari found Mikona, who had turned into a monster. Mikona seemed willing to do anything to defeat Lloyd, even if she had to capture Mari and use her to lure him. Her method ended up being effective because Lloyd came to her moments later, asking her to stop her madness. But she didn't want to hear that and instead challenged him to a duel, which he accepted. With Shoma's gifted power, Mikona can match Lloyd, at least for a while because Lloyd is still the winner in the end. But not long after, Selen and the others came, giving Mikona a chance to distract Lloyd. She attacks them, forcing him to become a shield for them and getting injured in the process. But she mistakenly attacked Lloyd's friends, making him very angry. He decided to fight seriously, to the point that his fight with Mikona shook the whole dungeon violently until he finally managed to win the battle by throwing her out of the dungeon. But as soon as the fight was over, the giant snake they were after appeared. And surprisingly, the snake knew Lloyd. He is Vritra, the guardian of Kunlun and the source of Alka's power. In the past, Vritra fled to this dungeon after Alka made her skin as a belt, which is now worn by Selen. Unfortunately, the reunion between Lloyd and Vritra is ruined by the arrival of So, who then kills the giant snake. With Vritra dead, So hopes that the seal on Kunlun will weaken and, at the same time, eliminate Alka's power. But his guess was wrong. Her power is still there. She hit So head-on as soon as she appeared, making him crash into the wall. And So also apparently failed to kill Vritra completely because he managed to transfer his soul to the belt that Selen was wearing. Realizing his plan failed, So ended up escaping by teleportation. And before he completely disappeared, he vowed to unlock the dungeon in Kunlun one day. The next day, due to a misunderstanding, the people thought that Alan had defeated Vritra, and because of that, the king awarded him the title Dragon Slayer, despite his confusion during the ceremony. Meanwhile, Lloyd and the others head to Kunlun to take care of Vritra. Chrome and Colleen were also on this expedition. Only Alan was not with them. To get there, Alka summons Yug, a dwarf inhabitant of Kunlun, who opens a portal so they can get there quickly. From the outside, Kunlun looks like an ordinary village, but as soon as they entered it, the visitors immediately felt a terrifying air radiate around them. All the citizens have strange powers, and even the children there can repel dragons with only paper planes. In the village, Colleen and Chrome meet the expelled Murdoffin, who says that he cannot return to Azami because, apart from his sin, he has already felt at home in Kunlun. Later that night, Murdoffin goes to Mari to apologize, explaining that someone, who looks like So, gave him an egg one day. And after he presented the eggs to the king, they seem to be controlled by some power. Elsewhere, Yug and Alka are discussing someone who seems to want to resurrect all the demon lords. Apart from that, they also talked about how they had lost some of Vritra's memories before and how his memories are now starting to come back. The next day, they went to the dungeon to recover the Vritra. But when they arrived in front of him, Alka revealed that the dungeon was a prison where the citizens of Kunlun sealed the demon lord. And Yug added that with Vritra's current state, people with evil intentions could open the dungeon and release all the demon lords using only the holy sword, which was the key to the dungeon. But now she didn't see the holy sword, so she asked the group about it, making Riho suspicious of her. Regardless, Yug then started the ritual of healing the Vritra and stuffed it into an egg. But as a consequence, the power of Alka disappears when the egg hatches. When the rituals were over, Lloyd and the others planned to return to Azami as soon as possible, because the Azami kingdom would be holding a friendly match with the Geo kingdom to celebrate the peace that had finally been established between them. But before that, Yug took Alka to the forest because she had some things she wanted to talk about. But that was just an excuse because, in reality, she wanted to trap Alka in a hole. Yes, Yug had been waiting for the moment when Alka lost her power so that she could open the dungeon and free the demon lord. She had even prepared her plans long ago, including how she sealed the Vritra in that egg-like object. It was because she was actually cooperating with So and Shoma. After trapping Alka, Yug tells Lloyd to look for her, because she couldn't find her. Next, she transfers everyone to Azami, including herself, before closing the portal, thus trapping Lloyd in Kunlun. The others wondered why she had closed the portal, but she told them that she didn't want to be bothered by Alka for a day. And so, they returned home to prepare for the exhibition match. But when Selen, Philo, and Riho were checking the arena while mocking Alan, who was chosen as the fighter's representative, they found the king accompanied by So and Shoma. Feeling suspicious, Riho then asked the king to cancel the match. While in Kunlun, Lloyd finally finds Alka still trapped in the hole, which he often uses as a place to contemplate when he was still living in Kunlun. They both knew that Lloyd had to return to Azami soon, but Alka chose to use the cannon to send him back to Azami since they could no longer use the portal. The next day, the exhibition match was still held. In that match, Alan must fight against a cloaked figure, who turns out to be Mikona. Of course, he is no match for her. She beat him so badly that the king asked someone to stop the fight. But unfortunately, Chrome and Colleen could not act in front of So and Shoma's terrifying aura. In another place, the girls finally find Yug and try to stop her. But of course, she disobeyed their request and instead brought out an army of monsters to hold the audience hostage. Fortunately, the king listened to Riho's advice the day before, so he had already made anticipation in case something bad happened during the match. So, he prepared soldiers who could fight and had them disguise themselves as spectators. As a result, instead of being held hostage, the soldiers took up arms and fought the monsters. Murthoffen accidentally went to Azami when the group returned yesterday. He transforms into a naked man armed with a hoe and a sickle before fighting Shoma. But during their fight, Shoma took the time to explain the motivation behind his actions. Turns out he was bored with the world he lives in today and didn't want Lloyd to feel the same way. So, to make his brother's dream of becoming a hero come true, he sets the stage by starting a war. After saying that, Shoma immediately moved as fast as lightning and attacked Murthoffen. Meanwhile, Alan sneakily sneaks behind So and attacks him, cutting off his arm. But miraculously, his arm can be reconnected easily. It turns out that he is an artificial creature created by Alka long ago to become a hero and save the world. But after his mission was completed, he could not die, so he planned to kill Alka, thus making people see him as a criminal. Then, he will make someone become a hero to replace him. That person is Lloyd, and only by that So could disappear from the world. Right after So finished explaining, Lloyd appeared in the center of the arena, asking Yug to return the Vritra egg. In response to his request, Yug summoned a giant golem with Mikona as the source of his power and ordered the monster to fight Lloyd. Lloyd and the golem clash, and he manages to destroy his hand. But it turns out that the golem can regenerate, so even though he repeatedly destroys it, it can recover quickly. At some point in the fight, Riho cleverly lures Mikona out with a piece of Mari's underwear as bait. Lloyd can defeat the golem easily. At the same time, Selen managed to snatch the Vritra egg from Yug's hands and break the seal. All of this made Yug panic, but when she turns to So and Shoma for help, she finds them busy filming and commenting on Lloyd's heroics. With Vritra free, Alka's power returns again. She then appears on the battlefield and kills Yug's entire army of monsters. But when she raises her hand to kill Yug, Shoma reacts faster and saves her. Their mission was complete, and there was no longer any reason for them to linger there. So, with that, they left with the still angry Yug. At the end of the anime, Lloyd is shown still living with Mari and the girls, and now, they were all gathered together to celebrate the victory. Alan was also present at this celebration. With that, this anime ends. The message we can take from Lloyd is that everyone must have talent in a particular field. So, don't be sad or discouraged if you feel you don't have the skills. You must have. It's just that you haven't found and honed it.